Unfortunately, we're not necessarily seeing that. We are seeing, although you see one person there, but we are seeing a lot of vehicles that are parked, and yes, some of them that are pulling in or out of their driveways and driving to their homes potentially.
Yeah, that's always a concern when a pursuit is at this time of the day when, as you said, people are just coming home from work or school. So you do have a lot of that pedestrian traffic. You have cyclists, especially on these narrow residential streets. You can get a lot of that type of activity. So it actually would be safer if you got back on the freeway, because at least it does take a lot of those dangerous elements out of the equation. But at this point of the day, every freeway here in our area is going to be extremely congested, and this guy probably knows that. So he's probably trying to avoid getting onto the freeway so that he doesn't get stuck in traffic, and is instead going to continue to work surface streets here in the Adams-Normandy area.
And if it's the sheriff's department following overhead in the helicopter, how long will they allow him to just continue to go round and round and play this game without doing anything? Because as Annabelle just pointed out, we're seeing a lot of people, children, there's some people right there out in the streets. So it could easily turn into a very bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really up to the watch commander to determine if he's going to allow ground units to get behind this guy to try to chase him with units behind him, which was the situation initially. There were ground units behind him, but he was driving pretty recklessly, so that is when they pulled the units off, and it's been helicopter only ever since. Now, the watch commander could also just cancel everything altogether and pull the helicopter off as well, because this is a property crime. It's not a violent crime. This is believed to be a stolen car. So the police department really has to weigh if it is worth it to continue to chase this guy and potentially endanger people, which is not what they want to do. They, of course, want to protect life and property, but in that situation, life is always going to win out. So they could possibly just cancel everything altogether. But for now, they're going to continue to follow, at least with the helicopter, as he continues here on Adams near Normandy.
Ileana, thank you. And right now at 6 o'clock, we do continue to follow that breaking news out of South LA.
This is a pursuit that is underway involving the Hawthorne police at this point. That is the agency involved. Ileana Moreno has been over the scene in News Chopper 4. And Ileana, where are we right now?
Robert, we're on Adams and Dalton, so we're very close to Adams and Normandy would be the majors. And I was just saying literally 30 seconds ago that there was a possibility that the watch commander could cancel everything altogether. And my pilot, James Pollard, is now telling me that the sheriff's ship, which was the only police unit that was following him, is now being pulled off the chase. So this is going to be a situation where they're going to let him go, at least for now. The reason they're doing that, of course, is they have to weigh the danger level versus getting somebody's stolen car back. And at this point of the day, with the number of pedestrian traffic, the number of vehicles that are out here in the area, the police department in this situation has determined that it's best to just let this guy go for now and try to get the vehicle at some other point out of basically an abundance of caution for protecting life and property here in the area instead.
We have to say that we did many times see people coming outside. We saw people on bicycles. We saw children since this driver has been driving around this neighborhood. So we have kept pointing out that it is very dangerous.
And they seem at this point, Ileana, that whoever is following that car, that stolen vehicle, has a pretty far back anyway. And so they're going to soon get the impression that there is no one following them anymore. Is that what the goal is here?
Yeah, exactly. So they were, what you're describing is surveillance mode. So basically the ground units will stay perhaps even a quarter mile back with the helicopter overhead so that the helicopter can continue to keep tabs on the vehicle. And whenever he does see it come to a stop, that's when those ground units can swoop in. But in this situation, as my pilot James Pollard was just telling me, the helicopter has been canceled. So at this point, there's no helicopter overhead and there's no ground units behind him either. So it's a situation where for now, this guy will get away. Unclear how long that's going to go on for, because of course they could catch him in an hour, they could catch him in a day, but for now, because of the number of vehicles and the number of pedestrian traffic in the area, they've decided to let this one go.
And just wondering, Ileana, if you ever heard anything about that beat up front bumper, the way we see it looks like just a big chunk taken out of it right there. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, we never heard if he was involved in a collision, but clearly he was. And this was in Hawthorne initially. It started off of Broadway and Oxford were the streets down there where Hawthorne police officers spotted this vehicle, and it came back as a stolen. Now, just in covering police pursuits for a long time, I know that whenever Hawthorne police gets a pursuit, they're pretty quick to bring things to an end. They're great with pit maneuvers. So I don't know if this is a possibility where maybe the vehicle was damaged in a pit maneuver or in an accident after the fact, but clearly significant damage there on the front driver's side of the vehicle.
And you are watching the NBC4 News at 6 o'clock. I'm Robert Kovacik alongside Kathy Vara. This is a stolen vehicle pursuit that we have been on now for some time. Right now, this vehicle in the Jefferson Park area. And Kathy, I think Ileana clarified that there's only the driver in the car, and the only want right now is, in fact, just for a stolen car.
This is a stolen car out of Hawthorne, and we had been in surveillance mode with the Sheriff's Department following. The ground units had been called off because they deemed this too dangerous. You can see why they're on these streets, and we've seen pedestrians in the way. But right now, no one following, just us, and we continue to track them as we thought possibly they would continue going round and round and eventually do what we see all the time happen and ditch the car and get out. But Robert, earlier we have to mention that Ileana saw two other people get out of the car. So there were more people. Maybe they got information from them. We don't know.
And the reason why we believe now that the Sheriff's Department is going to pull away from this pursuit is, in fact, just what you saw there, sort of the residential streets that this car was driving down, and not to put any people in danger. I'm not sure if you noticed, but on the right side of that car, it appears, you see the damage on the left side, but on the right side, it appears that something was dragging from that side as well. Not sure what collision this car was involved in either before or after the pursuit began.
Yeah, so a stolen car right now at Jefferson Boulevard, Jefferson Park in Los Angeles, and they continue. Speeds not too terribly high. I mean, it is for a residential area, and we've seen the driver hit some speed bumps and
not paying attention to traffic signals.
Exactly. So it was deemed too dangerous to continue, because that always ramps up the adrenaline and might make the driver take off even more. But just there you go, not following the signs right there, not stopping there at the intersection and going around drivers when they get in front, for example, turning right here.
And Kathy, you mentioned that there were two people that were dropped off from that car. And was this in the same neighborhood that they were dropped off in? Pretty much the same neighborhood. So as you said before, driver may be very familiar with this area and maybe knowing exactly where he's going, and maybe just sort of taking a tour right now around South LA.
Exactly. Maybe looking for a place to get rid of the car and to get out and run. But earlier, they could see, obviously, that they were being tailed. Right now, not sure why they continue with no one following them, but maybe just wanting to be extra sure. Right now, let's get back to Ileana. Maybe she can tell us a little bit more information about this pursuit we've been following. Started about 5:20. Ileana?
Yeah, it started at about 5:20 in Hawthorne. It was near Broadway and Oxford. So that is when police officers from the Hawthorne Police Department spotted this car. Now, it's unclear if the plates are the rightful plates to the vehicle and they came back as stolen, or if this was a cold-plated vehicle situation where the plates simply don't even match the vehicle, and likely meaning that the vehicle itself is stolen with stolen plates. So it's been going on for a while, approximately 40 minutes or so. It's made its way all the way from Hawthorne up to Jefferson Park, and we're now in South Los Angeles. For a while, we were very close to USC. And it appears that the vehicle was involved in at least one collision at some point, because it does have that significant damage to the front driver's side of the vehicle.
Ileana, what do you think we will do right now? Do you think authorities will get back on this, or we will just see this car continuing to drive around? As we've seen, again, more pedestrians, they're just not stopping.
Yeah, so at this point, there's no ground units behind him, and there's no helicopter overhead either. So at this point, basically the pursuit has been terminated in that sense. However, there is always the possibility that further down the road, another police agency could possibly spot this car, and obviously they would see the significant damage to the vehicle, so it'd be easy to spot. And then also they've been notified that not LAPD, but rather Hawthorne Police was in pursuit of a vehicle matching this description. So they could possibly get in the vehicle, or get behind the vehicle rather, as we make our way towards South Los Angeles. Those two other possible agencies would be either LAPD or the LA County Sheriff's Department. If I had to guess, LAPD would be the most likely to possibly follow this car, because usually the Sheriff's Department, thank you. Usually the Sheriff's Department is quick to terminate their pursuits, but for now we're here facing southbound on Western, coming up to 37th Street.
Also the possibility, Ileana, that perhaps the Hawthorne PD knows who the driver is, and maybe has an address, an identification on this driver, and is hoping that they can pick up this driver in a different location at some other time. Is that what they're thinking as well? That's the mindset?
Yeah, that is very possible. They wouldn't have any information about the driver based off of the vehicle itself because it was stolen. When you and I are driving, the police officers behind us can easily run our plates and get our registered information and be able to know where we live, and could track us down that way. In this case, because the plates don't come back to this person in any way, any information that police could have possibly gotten about this driver would have to come from his friends. He did drop off 2 passengers at one point, and we believe that the Sheriff's Department was able to take them into custody, so they could have given police a name of who is possibly behind the wheel, and of course they could have given them an address as well, which means that police could try to get him at some other point. So for now, there's no units directly behind him, and again, no airship overhead, but clearly still some dangerous driving going on here in South LA.
All right, Ileana, thank you so much. We're going to stay with your picture right now as we're joined on the phone with retired CHP Officer Bill Preciado. And Bill, thank you for joining us this evening. We just wanted to get your point of view as to why authorities pulled off of this and these dangerous pursuits when they happen on city streets where people are walking and passing by.
Good afternoon, Kathy. It's afternoon on a Friday afternoon. The sergeant that made that call, more than likely.
Bill, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, more than likely what? I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you.
More than likely, the sergeant who made that call is taking into consideration the traffic.
Hey, Bill, it's Robert Cavassa. Good to talk to you again, sir. Bill Preciado, formerly with the CHP. Bill, when you consider a pursuit like this, is it possible that they will then jump back on because they think that they can possibly be able to get this person and take that person into custody?
Oh, definitely, Mark. They're using their air unit. Those are one of the tools. Yes, I am here. Okay. Oh, that the unit is more than made the call, is taking all that into consideration, and
all right, I think we're having a little bit of trouble. That was Bill Preciado, retired CHP officer, just a little bit of trouble with the signal. So we want to go back to our News Top reporter and Ileana Moreno, who can fill us in a little bit more on what we're seeing, which is really kind of more of the same, just in the same location. Ileana.
Yeah, more of the same, Kathy, just kind of working his way here through residential streets in South Los Angeles. A number of close calls with pedestrians and other drivers. And for a second there, he started driving on the wrong side of the road, too, because he didn't want to wait behind some slower moving traffic. But he's back in a residential area, which, as the officer from the CHP was just saying, the watch commander, the sergeant on this, likely canceled because of the traffic conditions. So it goes back to a point that I was making before. The police department, their job is to protect life and property. In this case, the vehicle is the property of somebody, of the rightful owner, and they'd love to get the vehicle back to that person, but they have to take into consideration the lives that could possibly be put in danger if they continue to chase this person. So that watch commander, he weighed his options and decided at this point it's not worth it to continue to chase him because it's more important to make sure that nobody gets struck by this guy, that nobody gets run over. And so for that reason, at this point, they have pulled all the ground units off of him as well as the helicopter overhead.
Ileana, take us back from what you know when it comes to exactly how this vehicle was stolen. You say it was stolen in Hawthorne. Was it stolen in a carjacking? Was it taken from a person's driveway, from a parking lot? What do you know, and what do we know about the owner of this car, and were they involved?
The only thing we know about the original vehicle theft was that the vehicle was spotted in the area of Broadway and Oxnard at about 5:20 by Hawthorne police. So that is when they started giving chase. Right before they start pursuing, they always just try to do your traditional traffic stop. In this case, it would have been a high-risk traffic stop. So we usually have what is called a following before we go into a full-on pursuit. So they followed this vehicle for a while. They got some units behind him, likely got the helicopter overhead, and then tried to pull him over. But that is when the driver decided he wasn't stopping, and he and his two buddies kept going. Now, when we got to South Los Angeles, that is where he dropped off his two passengers. So at this point, we believe that that driver is solo in this vehicle, a Kia Soul, which does have some damage there to that front bumper on the driver's side. It's unclear how that happened, but considering the number of close calls that we've seen so far, it wouldn't surprise me if he was involved in a collision during the course of this pursuit.
And as far as speeds that you've seen since we started this, it stayed relatively in the same area, like between the 30s and maybe up to 50 at some point. But maybe this just isn't dangerous enough for the authorities to keep following, because we have seen that situation where it's so outrageous that they feel like they have to bring it to a stop.
And the reason why we are following this, Kathy, and we want to reiterate to our viewers, we're staying with this due to the safety concerns for the community in the South LA area and wherever else this driver could go, because we have seen and we are seeing reckless driving, and we do want you to be aware of what is going on right now on the streets, perhaps right outside where you live, as you see a man just trying to get out of the way of this stolen car.
So, Ileana, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to say, so obviously they had gone into surveillance mode because it was so dangerous. They had the helicopter on him, and that helicopter followed him for quite some time in hopes that he would change his driving style. That's the whole point of going into surveillance mode. They want this driver to think that he is no longer being pursued, but he's actually doing some hand gestures in our direction. So it seems like this guy still knows that there's helicopters above him, so he still thinks that this is a pursuit. He's gesturing. He might even be gesturing to the vehicle right next to him. I don't want to zoom in too much because I'm not sure what hand gestures those are, but he did have his window down there for just a moment. He's wearing a black sweater, made some hand gestures either at the helicopters overhead or at that vehicle right next to him, but he's picking up speed here on Flower, possibly going to be jumping on the freeway.
It seems like this guy has no intention of finding a destination, Ileana, and if South LA and that Jefferson Park area was where he wanted to go, where he dropped off two passengers, perhaps now he's not going. But you notice now we have a patrol car right behind him.
Yeah, so he's right under the bridge there, the overpass for Vernon Avenue. I haven't seen him pop out.
No.
That was LAPD. It was LAPD Southwest. And my monitor's pretty small, so if you guys see him pop out, let me know. But I haven't seen him come out.
Neither the LAPD unit or that stolen Kia.
But we'll keep eyes on it and let you know if we do see anything. Right now,
Cars are going around
we're seeing them going very slowly, so you can tell something is going on. But I haven't seen either, and I haven't seen another patrol car at this point. So this is 42nd Flower, and 42nd.
Yeah, so this is the 110 at Vernon, and I'm hearing on the scanner that the suspect vehicle may have hit the police car on the southbound 110. So I'm just listening on the scanner here real quick so I can try to pick it up again. But he may be further down here on the freeway. He may have popped out when we weren't looking.
Okay, we'll let you listen for just a minute as we continue to let our viewers know that we've been following this now for about an hour when it started, and this was a stolen car, a Kia Soul, out of Hawthorne. And Chopper was over it for a while. They were following it in surveillance mode because, as Ileana was explaining to us, Robert, it got a little bit too dangerous.
But you see right there, that's the Vernon overpass,
Yeah.
Kathy, and there is a reason why those cars are deliberately sort of going slow and obviously moving around something. So it is safe to speculate that is where the LAPD patrol car and that stolen Kia could very well be at this point.
Yeah, but she was talking about
The
it.
suspect has surrendered.
Okay.
Producer Nick is just telling me in my ear the suspect has now surrendered. You see another LAPD unit just went under that, under the freeway there. And you see it's blocking the traffic there. So
There we go.
have a surrender. You have to wonder if those gestures were, I'm getting ready to turn myself in, and that's why the unit had pulled up alongside of him or so close. So they have this guy in custody. We're talking about a pursuit that started in Hawthorne, a stolen car, and there they are on scene. Not great for the people on the 110 trying to get home or wherever they're going on a Friday, but this is a freeway that you are going to want to avoid. I believe, Ileana, if you're still with us, that is the 110 freeway south, correct?
It is. It's the 110 at Vernon. So right where we lost sight of him, we didn't see anything else because the bridge was covering us. But on the scanner, what I did hear them say was that the suspect had rammed the police car with his vehicle. So we saw that unit of the LAPD Southwest Division had gotten directly behind him, and then our view was obscured. But what we heard was that he hit the vehicle, and at that point, you could hear the panic in the officer's voice as he called for help from other officers. And you can see that they have responded here in full force, again, southbound side of the 110 freeway at Vernon. You see the driver door is open now, but what they're working on now is to clear the rest of the vehicle. They want to make sure that nobody else is inside because, again, at one point, there were multiple people in the vehicle. We know that there were at least 3 at one point. But at this point, we believe it's still just the driver there. You saw him being taken away there. But other officers are going to move into the vehicle itself now to just clear it and make sure that nobody else is inside. They've cleared the seats. They're just going to pop the trunk real quick and make sure that that's going to be it. But I'm going to push in here. I'm going to use one of my doublers so we can take a closer look here at the driver. He's now there in the back of that squad car.
Okay, driver of a stolen vehicle now in custody out of a pursuit that began in Hawthorne and has finally come to end on the 110 South